Trump made it a big issue, and I'm stating the obvious here. So him saying, don't look at it, don't talk about it, the whole thing makes no sense. It is a disaster, but because of integrity issues, I can't sit here and play along with it. And all the evidence points towards.
So recently, Alex Jones went on the Tim Dillon show and talked about Trump's role in the Epstein story cover-up. He gets into what he thinks the ramifications are for the Trump administration, why he's continuing to talk about this issue, and where he thinks the evidence really does point to. He's one of the most interesting analysts of these types of stories, whether you like him or hate him. So let's get his take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
It is interesting to see that, this administration is starting to spin out of control. It feels like that.
Yeah, that's a good way to see it. The first 5 months or so, it was like almost perfectly on track for and then it just started going sideways, and now it's moving very quickly the wrong direction. And I have no interest in them failing. My God, the Democrats are literally trying to put me in prison and suing me and all this other. I mean, it's like my lifeboat I'm in is Trump, and then he's poking holes in the bottom of the boat. And then I don't want to be enemies with Susie Wiles. I don't want to be enemies. And I can tell you a lot more. I mean, I've had the White House call up and be like, last week, what do you want?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you think I'm doing all this just to get something? I've never asked for anything. I want you to do what you were elected to do.
Yeah.
So it went from, you're bad, we're going to have our influencers attack you 2 weeks ago, to what do you want?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And it sounds like he's not the only one that got that kind of call from the White House, by the way. It sounds like the White House reached out to influencers like Charlie Kirk and other people that are close to Trump and asked the same thing. Hey, stop talking about this. But this is a child sex trafficking ring, and probably connected to an intelligence operation, maybe a foreign intelligence operation, maybe an Israeli foreign intelligence operation. So of course, we're not going to stop talking about it. I'm glad that Alex hasn't stopped talking about it, and thank you, Tim, for having him on. Now, me and Alex definitely disagree. I think this presidency went off the rails pretty darn quickly. There were some good early successes, if you ask me, from a dissident perspective, releasing the JFK files, withdrawing from the World Health Organization, and dismantling U.S. aid, which kind of came out of the blue in a good way. Mostly dismantled. Some of their employees got rolled into the State Department, but those three things were good, but it went downhill quick, beginning, I think, mostly with the bombing of Yemen there in March. And from there on, we have rearming Ukraine, starting a new war with Iran, which there's only a ceasefire. That's going to still poke its head out again when Netanyahu talks about how close Iran is to nukes again. You got the schism over spending with Musk, dragging people that actually did want to make cuts, but that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, they want it to go away. They want this to go away. And I've been listening to you since I'm 12 years old on the GCN network. I remember listening to you before 9/11, by the way, and then
Wow.
GCN network. We're talking like fucking 1999.
We're talking 8-bit internet.
I mean, unbelievable. And I believe that was the network you were on, was GCN.
Yes.
Yeah, but the Bohemian Grove days, man. If you've been listening to Alex Jones talk about dissident issues and, uncovering the filth and scam that is secretive government operations since then, I guess you get a medal for that.
So that's how long I've been listening to you, and that's why I bring you in when stuff like this happens, because I often get confused because we all basically say to ourselves, what the hell's going on? It's almost like the gaslighting is so crazy because it's like, they start going like, who said Epstein was a blackmail operation? They're like, who said any of this? And you go, why would you suggest he's connected to the Mossad or anything? And you go, wait a minute, hold on. This has all been kind of decided. There's mountains of evidence. So to attack supporters or, people that are just raising questions, of course you're going to have to go out and say, hey guys, we know what you're doing. For whatever reason you want this to go away, it's not going to go away until you disclose the information you have.
Yeah, they have to come clean. They're obviously in damage control mode, and Tim's right to frame it this way. This was not a Democratic hoax, as Trump has said repeatedly after that first press conference where he just dismissed it. He's like, hey, there's nothing to see here. I can't believe you're asking a question about Epstein. 24 hours after, we released a DOJ memo going back and taking a 180 on everything we've talked about regarding Epstein. And you can say that Trump didn't make this a big campaign issue. In some ways, I think that's true. He did appear on a few podcasts talking about how he leans toward releasing the information, including on Lex Friedman. But it was his subordinates that he surrounded himself with in his cabinet that did, like Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. These guys made quasi-political careers talking about Epstein and talking about how the Biden administration was being the opposite of forthcoming when it came to Epstein and the Epstein story. The Democrats wouldn't touch this under the Biden administration, and right-wing populists were right to call it out. Some left-wing, dissidents called it out too at that time, but the establishment left was not poking into their toolbox and taking out the Epstein story to wield it against Trump. They were taking out farces like Russiagate to do that with.
And that's the problem. The CIA was involved, MI6 was involved, Mossad was the main group from all our evidence. And now that they've implicated people in Trump's circle, he's doubled down. He's totally pig-headed. It's a strength and a weakness. And so the polls show it from Rasmussen, and all the other polls show it. This is a death spiral, and it's so sad. And then you got the Democrats that are openly, with 350,000 kids smuggled across, a bunch of them in sex slavery, slave labor. You have Tom Homan, they've already saved 35,000 kids, prosecuted over 1,000 human traffickers. All this good's happening, and I don't want to see this happen. But the way this works, and I'm surmising this, I don't know if this is true, but if Trump makes a deal with the deep state to leave him alone on the Epstein thing, as implicates intelligence agencies, they go, okay, you got to have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and all you go out and say there's nothing there. And this is what Kyle Seraphin, really smart FBI whistleblower, said months ago on my show. They're being given bad advice to go out and do stuff that discredits them by the very same people acting like they're on their side. So it looks like they made a deal to deep six this for whatever reason, and then the very same media and Democrats then turn on them and now hanging around their neck. And notice when the Democrats say they want Epstein declassified, they only want stuff with Trump in it. Now, right. I say release it all. Release it all.
Yeah, I think Alex makes a good point there. Actually, this is a PR disaster, whether it is a cover-up or not. I think it's pretty clear that this is a cover-up that spans multiple levels of the government, multiple administrations, the left-right dichotomy. Many prominent people were in on this thing from all political stripes, all political sides especially. And the way they've handled it is just completely absurd. And I'm not even saying absurd because I'm a Trump fan, but you can tell that they are responding to this thing in a way they haven't responded to other critiques of Trump that they have been successful in kind of shoving under the rug and, going away from, like Yemen. I mean, that was something that mostly only dissidents really, really cared about. And the bombing campaign that happened there for about a month, it was totally fruitless. The Houthi regime is still there. I mean, they lived fighting against a neighboring regime land invasion for over a decade. They've survived an American blockade for over a decade, the Yemeni government there. So what's said that that would do any damage? And the Signalgate controversy. But this is real. This is tearing at Trump's coalition. And it's not just MAGA, the Trump diehards that supported him. It's dissidents that, held their nose in the polling booth and voted for Trump because they did think that Trump would be better on issues like this, on issues like transparency. And again, even if this wasn't the focal point of his platform, transparency was. He used to run on Drain the Swamp, and you can really see how this is going totally back on draining the swamp if you're just going to say nothing to see here, sweep it under the rug. I can't believe you're asking questions about Epstein. And oh yeah, it's a Democratic hoax anyways, after all the years of clamoring for this.
Release it all is the only way. And maybe depose Alex Acosta and let's find out who told him that.
And that's the, again, U.S. attorney that prosecuted him 15 years ago that said he was told go easy, he's intelligence.
Yes, I mean, let's find out. And at the end of the day, I think that, I'm not naive. You're not naive. We know that there's serious players behind the scenes that are exerting pressure on all kinds of people. And I know that you can't wave a magic wand and make the deep state go away, and you can't, throw them all in jail overnight. But if there's no accountability for this type of criminal activity that everybody knows about, the lack of credibility is going to eat away at not only this administration, but at the government and the justice system in this country.
No, you're right. You're absolutely, you've hit the key here. Yes, this is a benchmark deciding issue because they killed Epstein, all the cover-ups, people learned about it. And then now Trump made it a big issue, and I'm stating the obvious here. So him saying, don't look at it, don't talk about it, he's not that stupid to do something like that. And so the whole thing makes no sense. It is a disaster. We need change. He's brought in a bunch of good people. It's so sad, but because of integrity issues, I can't sit here and play along with it. And all the evidence points towards Mossad blackmailing Trump. And I just wonder, how we're supposed to get out of this. And I hope he can fix it because, normally a incumbent president that wins the first election, they lose the House and Senate. The numbers, according to the pollsters, we were trending to win. He was getting, record numbers with everybody.
Well, a lot of
yeah, I think that this administration is on track to lose big, especially with independents and dissidents and maybe distant-leaning Trump supporters that weren't completely sure about their vote. And I do think the polls are reflecting that. And I'm not just talking about left-wing rag polls that would always end up being against the Republicans. It does show a shift recently. And again, they're responding to this differently than we've seen before. Now, he made a reference to Alex Acosta. That was the district attorney for the Southern District of Florida. That is the guy that overrode essentially his local DA and said, hey, we're going to give Epstein a sweetheart deal in this child molestation case with over 40 witnesses, by the way, that she wanted to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. He overrode her. I think her name was Villanueva. And he said, no, we're going to go forward with this plea deal. And it was the absurdest plea deal imaginable. He got a work release program. They carved out a section of the sheriff's department, not a federal prison, for him, by the way, that he got to live in, and he got to leave for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He could go between properties. He was out on for fresh air many of the times. He even had people passing through and doing business deals with him from that location. This was a sweetheart deal. It seemed to be an obvious cover-up here. He was connected to prominence. He agreed to act as an informant to the feds too. That's something not usually known about here, but it wasn't even the first time he was acting as an informant too. He also did so after Tower's financial collapse. That was a Ponzi scheme he was involved in, and the guy that ran that company went down for it for 18 years, Stephen Hoffenberg. And Hoffenberg, to his dying day, I think he only died a few years ago, went down saying, Epstein was the architect of this Ponzi scheme, and Epstein was the one that worked with the feds there. So he had connections here. It doesn't make any sense. And the Trump administration isn't being forthcoming at all by what we know they have. We know they have records of wire transfers between Epstein and people of prominence, evidence that was collected and used, but not divulged to the public in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, search warrant results from the 2019 searches of his properties, and I say that in the plural, etc. Stuff remains, but they're not giving it to us.
Fundraising came from very big donors, people like Miriam Adelson and stuff like that have a lot of political connections in Israel, obviously. And I think there's probably pressure from that avenue as well, of people that spent a lot of money to help Trump get elected that are probably telling him, let's make this go away. Let's not have this be an embarrassment or worse.
Your video cut out of you there.
Sorry, yeah. Did you hear me? Yeah.
You are back.
Okay, yeah,
I got most of that. What is that? Is that a devil on your, is that Hillary Clinton on your?
No, this is a lobster. It's the summer.
See, that's like a.
It's the summer.
That's
it's
like
lobster.
those. That's like those ink.
Yeah.
It's like those ink blots. See, what does that say about me? I don't see a lobster. I see a devil.
It's the summer. So when the lobster's over and it goes to the fall, we put a pumpkin.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's great how they can transition between these issues. It's Tim has a unique show for sure.
We try to make it nice while we talk about international, sex trafficking, cults and this, that, and the other thing. By the way,
right.
Hollywood stands to probably get very embarrassed if this comes out too, because this is not just political. There's probably a lot of big people in Hollywood.
Let's talk about who we know is heavily involved.
Yeah.
You had a clear blackmailing operation against high-tech people, science people, vaccines, genetic engineers, Harvard, massive Hollywood, the Clintons, Steve Jobs' wife, the Atlantic Monthly owner, Atlantic Magazine, all those people. And that's my big frustration is that we know they're all in there. We know it's all going on. And by Trump doing this, he's now joining with them. And he did it in such a terrible way as saying, you're not part of our organization if you question this, which then backs up the left's claim that MAGA is a cult. Well, I'm not in a cult. So how are you processing this? Because I'm not a lesser two evils guy, but overall, Trump administration is a lot better, I think, than Democrats. But at the same time, there's an integrity issue because I become an accomplice by extension, Tim Dillon, if I join in on the cover-up.
Yeah, no doubt. Alex is right that Epstein surrounded himself with people of prominence all across the political universe, the business universe, etc. Laurene Powell Jobs was one of Ghislaine's best friends, apparently. But it's circumstantial evidence that leads us to believe that Epstein was involved in some sort of intelligence operation. It might have been tied to the blackmail too. And I say circumstantial not to demean it. There's just many things that point in that direction that show much of his wealth was inexplicable and could not have been gained almost in any other area outside of blackmail payments or payments from intelligence services. We know, he had a close association with Robert Maxwell, who himself was a widely publicized Israeli asset, got a special Mossad, kind of state funeral on the Mount of Olives when he died mysteriously. We won't go down that rabbit hole. But he also had connections to people involved in intelligence operations on the Israeli side, like Adnan Khashoggi, who was his client at a time. He was managing money for one of the biggest arms traffickers in the world, played a role in Iran-Contra and moving money and arms from Israel to the Contras. He had Ehud Barak, who was the former prime minister of Israel and one-time intelligence director of the IDF, that's military intelligence in Israel. It's like Mossad's sister entity, showing up at Epstein's property 30 times, living with him in Manhattan for a prolonged period of time. Epstein also knew 3 other Israeli prime ministers, some better than others, and introduced Netanyahu to at least one executive of JP Morgan. He had 17 presidential visits to the Clinton presidency in the White House, and we don't really know what the purposes were for many of those. Yet, there's much evidence that does point in that direction, that this was an intelligence operation designed to get blackmail on prominent people and then bend them to your will. There's nothing an intelligence service would want more than that. The CIA would want that more than anything of any other country's politicians, by the way, too. So what we know is only what's been uncovered, and that is why people are clamoring about this. There's so many things that don't add up, from Epstein's connections to Mossad and Israel to also how he acquired much of his wealth. Like, on paper, he acquired most of his wealth from doing Leon Black's taxes and getting about $150 million from that. Leon Black was also accused of sexual offenses. And I think Virginia Roberts Giuffre alleged that she was trafficked to him. And he got enormous amounts of wealth, property, and prestige from Les Wexner, who gave him a $77 million property in Manhattan. He gave him a property in Ohio. His property sat right next to him. He became his money manager, but really that meant he exercised enormous control over his companies, including Abercrombie & Fitch, Bath & Body Works, Victoria's Secret. And he even had his own executives, Les Wexner, coming up to him saying, hey, who is this guy? Why does he have all this power? How is he making all these power moves? And it's still inexplicable. They have not interviewed Wexner. So the things these guys are talking about is right. And to see the Trump administration conceal this stuff after talking about it openly so many times is really maddening. And you are seeing that. I think it could affect them in the midterms. If you care about that sort of thing, I think it's the uniparty anyway. And how Biden and Trump has handled this has been almost the same, except for the fact that Bondi orchestrated that PR stunt to give those binders of nothingness away to influencers. That's what we've seen here. So cheers to Tim and Alex for talking this out. I'm mostly on their side. There's a lot of information being withheld, and it's clearly on the part of the Trump administration as much as it was on the Biden administration. And I don't know if we'll ever get clarity short of a whistleblower, but I do want to hear from what you guys say. Let me know down below. Do you agree with me on this? Is Alex Jones right? Should we stop talking about the Epstein story? Do we need to clamor more about the Epstein story until we get what we need from it? Or not? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Tim Dillon Show too. Great episode here, and there's more to it if you check that out. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you do, click the join button below. You'll be able to support the channel, and in return, I'm going to give you all of my videos before they go live on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.